Alright, so our next one, our base is half of the bottom of a thick portion of Evening Primrose. Okay, so here's the outside, here's the inside, here's the hollow, okay, with the walls. Okay. So we have this one here, it's mated already, has its notch in there. Alright, now our pressure mouth brace, and again we're going back to our ping pong paddle. Okay, now I remember taking a look at this in the store and going, I could do something else with that too. And what I did was I took a section of that paddle, which if you don't know is slices of plywood laminated together, and then the rubber is then glued on top of it. So there's red rubber on this side and black rubber on this side. And what I did was I cut the rubber off in a square down here, and I added a bamboo section chamber with the node. So the node is here on the bottom so that the spindle doesn't go anywhere. Okay, and I shaped this portion here. Looks kind of like a Thunderbird or something like that shape, right? And what this does is I put the paper towel here, and this will fit just like that. Okay, and I have another example here where I actually kept the handle on, half of the handle. I left half the handle on, and I burred a hole inside the handle. So this was all connected. Okay, and again the paper towel goes there, and that fits just like that. So put our cold transfer sliver there. Now our spindle. What's our spindle today? Our spindle is copper tubing, 1/2 inch copper tubing. This one is 12 inches long, and this one is 7 inches long. Okay. Now the top of this one, which receives the socket, is not a bamboo chopstick, but a very thick section of almost 1/2 inch of thick bamboo wall. And it's kind of hard to see, but it's almost square, almost like a milkweed stem stalk, and it's rounded off. Okay, now our bottom for this one, and you notice it's not cut into 4 quarters, it's kept whole, and inside is a yucca reload. This 12-inch one, the top, which receives the socket, is made out of oak. So that's an oak top for spinning in the socket. And our bottom is a bit of a flared large piece of yucca again. Now this 1/2 inch diameter spindle, again, is metal. It might be rather tough if it was really cold temperatures outside on the hands. And again, this is probably one of the largest diameters that I would go for trying to spin something like this and still be able to get enough rotation. All right. So we're going to give it a shot on this base of Evening Primrose. 1/2 an Evening Primrose. Let's grease that up a little bit. Okay. And again, we're going to do our warm-up process and get ourselves a coal. And there we go. Half a section of evening primrose where the yucca reload, the spindle is copper tubing, oak top, ping pong paddle with handle, pressure mount brace. Alright, our next one, mouth drill method. Our base is a branch of flattened sycamore tree. Okay, as you can see, it's already mated, and the notch is put in, my famous trapezoidal notch. And we secure that down. Now, I don't have any other designs of pressure mount braces to kind of show you. I mean, I already showed you the cedar, the pine, all those other ones, the yucca, and so I'm just going to keep on using my ping pong paddle one, which is one of my favorites. But whatever design you can come up with that's comfortable, safe, and stable, just go for it. Now, if you go online, if you can like Google the northern peoples, the mouth drill, it's going to be under a bunch of different names. So mouth drill may be one of them, but it's going to be, you'd have to really look under kinds of friction fire, FR, by the way, as in friction fire, to find their designs, the structures of their drills. And I'm going to show you some other examples of what the northern peoples used to use, but look for their pressure mouth braces. And it's not going to be under pressure mouth braces, by the way. So they go by all kinds of names. Again, there's no standardization. There's no standardization of all these names and things like that. I mean, that's only here for the Fire Dojo and for myself, and for anyone else that cares. So, do your research and look for different kinds of shapes and sizes. You see, some of them are very intricate. Some of them form to the mouth very, very well, and they're real true pieces of art. So, our base is sycamore. Our pressure mouth brace is half a ping pong paddle. Now, our spindles are the fiberglass rods that you saw back in the hand drill. And the orange one here is 8 millimeters, okay, which is really thin for my taste, because your hands start rubbing together, because you're adding a lot of pressure with the pressure mouth brace, and it's harder to spin, and so I think you need a larger diameter. Now, the fiberglass rod fits inside a hollow chamber of bamboo, which is tightened down by 2 hose clamps with a reload of yucca. This yellow one is a little larger in diameter. It's 3/8 of an inch, and its design is the same, except this bamboo chamber is just a little bit longer by about half an inch, and it's double hose clamped with a reload of yucca again. Now, if you could see, the reloads of yucca, their diameters are larger than the diameters of the spindles themselves, which means that the more rotation I can get with the spindle, the faster the reload is actually going, because the outside diameters of the reloads, because they're larger, will spin faster than the spindle itself. But the one we're going to demonstrate today, this white one, is the thickest diameter. It's 10 millimeters. Okay? And again, this is a bamboo hollow chamber, double hose clamps with a section of, you guessed it, yucca. And I think that needs a little tightening down. So, we're ready to give this one a go. And then we're going to move on to the medium-sized ones, where we're sitting and kneeling. Okay? And there we go. Base of sycamore, yucca reload, fiberglass spindle, attached with bamboo and hose clamps, ping pong paddle pressure mouth brace. And there we go. Alright, so I'm going to show you my favorite sitting position when I'm doing mount drill. Now, I don't like to actually sit. I like to actually sit up off the ground. So this is actually a position, a fighting position in our martial arts dojo, and it's called Fudoza. And how this goes is, it's Japanese, and your right leg, you're actually sitting on your ankle. So you would lift up and your butt rests actually on your foot, okay, like this. So your body is actually kind of off the ground and sitting on your foot. So just for comfort, because I'm sitting on a table, I'm putting this towel underneath my foot. Now, when you finish this position, your left leg sits across and your toes are kind of near your right knee, okay? So, so you're sitting up off the ground, but you're basically sitting, okay? Now, how I like to do, hold the board, is the board will sit under my left ankle, like this. And now I'm looking straight down, and everything is secure. So what do we have today? We have a board base of sotol. Sotol is like a huge giant yucca, right? It's on the west coast, or at least it's in the southwest. And we've taken half, I don't know if I would call it a sapling, but it's a big, huge stalk that grows out of the center, and cut that in half, and I flattened the top, and it's already been mated, as you can see. And the thing about this is I put the notch on the side, like literally on the side of the base, okay? So it's not on either of the long sides, it's actually on the end, because I'm going to be holding it this way, facing out, and I will still want to be able to see the notch, so we're doing it this way, okay? So you vary things, you change things the way they need to be in order to make things work. Now, our pressure mouth brace is our chestnut one that we carved earlier from a chestnut branch, okay? And what's our spindle? Well, first of all, you have to keep in mind that this is a medium-sized spindle, and it should be appropriate for either sitting or kneeling. All right. Now this one is a hollowed out wooden tube, which I bought when I was in Japan, in Tokyo, and there's a department store there called Tokyu Hands, and you can see the label is still on it from Tokyu Hands, and I don't think you can read, probably not, katakana, which is Japanese written language for English words, and it says chikupa. Now, I don't know what that translates to, actually. I should probably look it up. But I imagine that's the wood as to what this is made out of. Now, we're not burning this wood, the chikupa. This is only our spindle, which is holding our reload. And it even has the measurements on it. 16 by 400. Now, Japan is metric, so 16 millimeters in diameter by 400 millimeters long. Okay? So that means the diameter is a hair over a centimeter and a half. Okay? 16 millimeters. And I bought this for 720 yen, which is almost $7.20 here in America. So now, where the top is here, okay, for the socket, which meets the pressure mouth brace, what that is it is a carved piece of deer leg bone, or cannon bone. And so that's fitted in there, and it's rounded off, and it is oiled with linseed oil. So what do we have down here? We have a surprise, because this is Japanese, a reload of bamboo, okay, chopstick to be exact, held in place with a hose clamp. Now, this tube is actually hollow throughout, so, and it didn't come that way naturally. It must be for some kind of woodworking project that you buy in the department store. Funny thing about the department stores there, they have everything, literally. And so this is machine worked, hollowed out, drilled through, and we're gonna give this a go. So I'm sitting nice and comfortable. I can adjust my body weight by leaning forward or moving back, because stability is very important for yourself in this case. All right, we have our paper towel. We're gonna warm it up and give it a go. Here we go. And we have our coal. That wasn't bad at all, right? So this is my favorite sitting position. It may be a little foreign to you, but again, you have to find your own body position, okay, for what's comfortable for you. Like, I can't actually sit on my hind and go forward like this. It kind of feels a little uncomfortable. I mean, I could probably get, if there's one the right size, I could probably pull it off, but I would probably kneel instead. I would prefer kneeling if I were to do it. So, all right, Sodal base, bamboo reload with chikupa spindle, wood spindle, with a cannon bone insert for the socket, for the chestnuts, pressure mouth brace. All right, on to the next. Let me pick that up. Alright, so our next one is actually going to be going through a few. Now, if you recall earlier, I had shown you the hand drill, which was made out of one of my mother's golf clubs. And from the top, by the way, it's 3/8 of an inch, and the bottom, which tapers larger, is 1/2 inch with a reload of yucca. Now, I didn't cut into it, so it's not quartered, and the reload just sits in there, and it works fairly well. But you can see the tapering on it. There's sections where they actually just get bigger and bigger. So again, what that means is that if I'm doing my back and forth rotations from the top, the bottom, which is larger, a larger diameter, the outside of that diameter is spinning faster. So technically I'm getting more speed, okay? But the top is, surprise, a bamboo chopstick, which is already formed, ready to receive in the socket of a mount drill. But we're not going to do that one. You saw me do that with a hand drill. I'm going to show you a whole aluminum arrow. You saw the short one earlier. Well, this is a tall one, okay? Now, the point here, the machined point of the arrow, is actually where the knock goes, those plastic knocks that receives the string. Well, that's automatically our socket, okay? Now, I quartered the bottom of the aluminum shaft, which has in it a yucca reload, which is obviously held down with a hose clamp, okay? And I'll just spin that for you real quick, just so you can see that work. And we're using our chestnut pressure mouth brace, okay? Now, my kneeling position, I like to put something under my knee, my right knee usually, and depending, I will either lay my ankle flat or I will be up on my toes, on my right foot, okay, if you can see that. I'm up on my toes. Now, actually, this is kind of a martial arts position, where you're ready to receive an opponent. But it's very well balanced because actually this is a triangle. The knee, the toe here, and your foot in the front makes a triangle. So that's a very stable position. So this is why I prefer this for kneeling. Now you can see that that's stable, and that should work, but we're not going to use this one. You saw me do an arrow already, and it's because it's like 3/8 of an inch, I don't want it to make my hands rub together. So we're going to put that one aside. This one is a 2-foot long, 1/2 inch steel tube, and it's not cut and quartered, okay? So the bottom is not cut and quartered, which has the yucca reload in it, okay? And the top is actually a little different this time. It's actually a tine of antler, of white-tailed deer antler. And that's one of the tines. Carved down to receive the socket of the pressure mouth brace, okay? And what else we got? Here we have a thicker stainless steel tube, and this one has a machined hole in it. Okay, I drilled a hole in it, and it has a pin that goes through it. And what this pin does is it helps make sure this helps make sure that if I had a bamboo chopstick reload in here, that it wouldn't go very far. It wouldn't sink all the way into the quarters. So what I have just sitting in here without any need for a hose clamp is a Yucca reload. Okay, the top, surprise, is a bamboo chopstick, which does not require quartering or a hose clamp. So that's sitting in there. But the one I am going to show you is this little thing we came up with, and it is an aluminum tube, and it came from a Swiffer dust mop, or whatever you want to call one of those things. And the top, which receives the pressure mouth brace, is antler again. It's an antler tine from a white-tailed deer. Okay, 5/8 inch aluminum tube. Now the bottom, now this is where the Swiffer was actually screwed into the bottom. Okay, so obviously that's off, and I quartered it, and the plastic is flexible enough to just hold in my reload of Yucca. Okay. Which, with just a little bit of effort, sits in there really nicely and doesn't come out and doesn't turn. Okay. But what's really funny about this is it's a takedown. Okay. Because you would take down the Swiffer, put it away in your closet or whatever. These two buttons work on a kind of like a spring action, and it's compact, but it's one solid piece once it's together. And this is the one that we're going to do. Now, the diameter of this is larger than 1/2 inch, so we're getting actually beyond my comfort zone. 5/8 of an inch is larger than 1/2 inch. All right, so we're going to try and spin this this Yucca reload, and the base is a Y base of willow. Okay, so you can see a little bit of this one. This is not mated yet. This one is mated, and it already has a notch, or I've fixed the notch. Now the Y that comes naturally from the wood is never going to be a perfect notch. You have to adjust it anyway, with your stone tools, with your knife, with your file, however you want to do it. Okay. So let's see if we can't get this one to work. So I'm going to get in my kneeling position here. Now, for health and safety, I have that towel under my knee. Okay. I'm probably going to be up on my toes a little bit. Now, this base is actually going to sit under my heel, because what I'm going to do is, to give myself space, remember that variable space, I need to open up my hip. Okay, I can't have it like this and be able to work the spindle. So I have to open up my hip, which means that my toes have to point out a little bit. So the base is actually going to sit under my heel. We're going to get our chestnut ready. Actually, you know what? We're not going to do chestnut. We're going to do our ping pong paddle. Okay? So we're going to warm it up, and here we go. And our coal transfer device is actually a little piece of paper towel. Okay. So, willow branch Y. Yucca reload in a kneeling position. Okay. Now, what's nice about the kneeling position is you can really get your weight on top of it and feel very stable while you're doing it. So you could just lean forward for more pressure, lean back for less, very, very subtly. All right, on to the next one. Okay, some of the last ones I'm going to show you are, well, this one. Now, you saw me do this one with the hand drill. I did this one standing, as a standing hand drill. So, I'm not going to show it to you again as a mouth drill. It's straight enough, and it's strong enough to be able to do as a mouth drill. In fact, it goes for both. It's a hand drill and a mouth drill. It's even got a socket place ready for receiving the pusher mouth brace on there. So we're going to put that one aside. And what's our base going to be? Our base is going to be a twin stick of sumac branches. So this is an example of the raw branches here. So I took the bark off and tied it together with a piece of jute. Okay, as you can see, it is mated, and I'm not going to lie to you, I don't really like the twin stick method without a notch. In fact, I don't like the trough method either. I mean, if I'm going to bother having a trough, I'm going to make myself a notch. I just don't think it's as trustworthy. So what I've done with this twin stick method is, instead of allowing it to form a coal between the sticks, which is what you normally do, I went ahead and put a notch in it. So, because I can. And I think it's more trustworthy to get a coal than to do it the other way. This is very much like a trough method, this space in between the twin stick. And I don't like either, really. I mean, if life depended on it, I would do my best to throw a notch in something and not trust it that way. Truth is. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this one that is the steel tube, okay, with the antler top and the Yucca reload on the bottom that is not quartered. Okay, and I'm going to do this one as a standing mouth drill. Okay. Now this one's going to be a little short, so I'm going to have to bend down pretty good. Okay, but it's because it's 1/2 inch in diameter, I should get a good grip on it. And there's our coals. Actually, there's 2 coals. Now the last two demonstrations I have for you are actually a segue into our next section, which is the bow drill in theory. So what we're actually doing is, again, adding one more device. So we've already added one device, the pressure mouth brace, okay? But this is what I believe to be in response to more if-only questions, not what-if questions. The demonstrations I just did are like what-if, because we're just playing around. But I think these creations, these structures, came about because out of necessity. So I think they were if-only questions. If only I could spin this spindle, but it's too small for me to spin. Or it's too thin for me to spin. Even though it's strong, maybe it's too thin for me to spin. Now, while we're asking these questions, these if-only questions, keep in mind that what our ancestors are actually experiencing and going through. The climates are much colder, like below freezing, okay? They're in sparse places, they're with unknown woods and plants that they've never seen before. They're lucky if they have plants, actually, because it's so cold. Think about how their bodies are. Their muscles don't work very well because they're so cold, all right? They may have lack of food, okay? They may be malnourished. There's a lot of things going on that would actually affect their survival. So again, these are mother necessity, if only questions. Well, if only I could get this spindle going in here, even though I can't spin it with my hands, okay? What if the diameter of your spindle is so thick, like beyond half an inch, for example, is so thick that you can't get enough rotation, you can't get enough speed, even though you know that it could work, okay? If only I could get this going, I could save my tribe. If only I could get this going, I could save my tribe. You know, that kind of thing. Well, how can I spin the stalk without my hands? Or using my hands to do something else? Okay? Well, the northern peoples of Alaska and Canada, the methods that they actually use are two methods called if it's a mouth drill, it's the mouth toggle drill or the mouth bow drill, okay? They also use a pump drill, but we'll get to that later because we're only discussing the mouth drill right now. And the toggle drill is basically like a strap. Now here I just happen to have a parachute cord, just for example, okay? And the funny thing that I have on here is these are cabinet handles that I got at the hardware store. They're cabinet handles. And I have the screws that would normally go in there that would fit through the drawer, the front of the drawer. Well, these are eye screws of the same size. So the eye screws, I have the parachute cord through here, okay? Now what a toggle, mouth toggle drill does is the string does the back and forth rotations for you at a faster speed, which is faster, is actually always going to be faster than your hands, okay? You can actually get more length, more rotations on the spindle with the strap than you're going to be able to with the surface area of your hands alone, okay? Now, in positions where it's almost nearly impossible to do, okay, it's very effective. So, again, a lot of times they had someone holding this board for them in order to make this work. But we're going to do our vice clamp on the table just for demonstration purposes. Now, what am I using today? Well, our base is a board of poplar, which I also got at the hardware store. Okay, poplar. And it's already mated with a trapezoidal notch, which I have already done. What is our spindle? Well, our spindle, we're going to say in this example that our spindle is actually too thick for us to spin with our hands and get enough rotation and therefore not get enough speed. So we wouldn't even be able to line it with our hands. Although it can be done with this half-inch spindle. Now, what is it that we're looking at? Can you see that? That's right. It's a drumstick. And we were in the music store one day. I was looking for something for my son, and I saw the drumstick, and immediately this came to mind. That would make a perfect mount drum. It's just the right diameter, get my hands around it, I could turn it really well. Look at that, it's all ready for a socket for the pressure mount brace. So I drilled a hole in the bottom, I quartered it, and I have a hose clamp on there with a, you guessed it, bamboo chopstick, which as we know is 10 millimeters in diameter. So again, we have that bicycle gear problem where we're spinning the spindle, which is a larger diameter, and we have a smaller diameter reload, which means that the reload, which is a smaller diameter, is always going to be spinning slower than the rest of the spindle. So we're going to show you how this goes. First, we're going to vise down our poplar. All right, and I think today we're going to do our oak T pressure mount brace, okay, with our paper towel. Now how this goes is you take your strap and you wrap it around a couple times, okay, maybe about 5 times, okay, and the strings should come off on the forward side, the outside. Because if the strings are on the side toward you, okay, that delivers pressure forward. And that pressure that's delivered forward is toward the notch. And you know what happens? Drift. So we want the pressure to actually kind of go backward a little bit. Even though we can adjust the axis with our mouth, we don't want the pressure going toward the notch, okay? So this is already greased, and you're going to see just how effective this is, okay? Here we go. Alright, so exactly what I didn't want to happen actually happened. It burned in the notch. So we're going to try it again. So I remated it, put another notch in, so we're going to try again. Again, our strap toggle is going to be forward. Okay. You can't really see, but I'm trying to get into a really stable position. I still want something triangular, but I still want something where my feet are not exactly in a straight line across. I want a triangle, but I want 1 foot forward in front of the other, okay? I want one foot length more than the other. So I'm in a triangle, but it's not a equilateral triangle. Okay. And that is the mouth toggle drill. Poplar base, bamboo reload, drumstick, spindle, parachute cord, cabinet handle, toggle, oak, pressure mount brace. Okay. And we're trying to answer that if only question. If only I could spin this using something other than my hands, because my hands won't be able to pull this off. Okay, so I need something else. We need one more device. So this is our segue into the bow drill. All right, so how low can you get to be able to do a mouth drill on the ground if your pieces are really small? Now, this spindle, which is by Surprise Bamboo, is 7 inches long, okay? The bamboo spindle, it's the bamboo chopstick spindle. And like before, we're gonna do, because we're really pushing the limits, we're gonna do chopstick on chopstick again. Our base is the flattened one, which has 1 millimeter off each end just to keep it flat. And as you can see, the spindle has been shouldered, where 1 millimeter has been taken off near the bottom, so that this 8 millimeter diameter spindle will fit on top of this 10 millimeter width baseboard. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into a crouch position and see if we can't get this thing going and really push the limits. Now, mind you, this base would be very secure into the ground somehow, or someone would be holding it. Okay. Let's see. So we're gonna move this around a few times. Again, the string is going to come off on the outside, so that stays away from the notch. Get up here on the table. The pressure mouth brace is also the old base of bamboo. Okay, it's already been mated. And there's our coal. So as you can see, in a way I'm kind of still in that triangular position, right? And I started to settle in, you see, and get a wider base for more stability. when I started to do it. But you can get all the way down on the ground to do it, as you can see. Okay? There we go. And there's our coal. Alright, if I can do it, you can do it too. On to the next one. Alright, so we're going to challenge this method again a little bit. We're going to change the technique, and to make it more interesting and up the ante, we've made the spindle less than 5 inches, okay, which is 12.5 centimeters, okay, and this is our bamboo chopstick. We have our bamboo pressure mouth brace, and we have a 12 millimeter wide base of bamboo, because this is a whole chopstick. Okay, so this is 10 millimeters. This base here is 12 millimeters. All right, and to push this, to make it more interesting, I'm going to be getting down as far as possible, lower than a crouch. I'm going to be laying flat on the ground. And I guess you can't get any lower than that unless you actually dig yourself a hole and you go underground. So, we're going to wind this around here. It's already mated, ready to go with a notch. And I'm going to get myself into a stable position. And again, you want at least 3 sides for a stable position. I have my hips and my lower abdomen on the ground, or in this case on the table, and my elbows will make up a triangle in this instance. Okay. Let's get set here. I'm going to warm it up and get this thing going. And we got our coal. Now, I guess you can't get any lower than that in order to get this going. Alright, so now we're going to be getting into the bow drill soon, and we're now working with bipolar spindles. Okay, so in order to clarify the ends, the top of the spindle that meets the pressure mouth brace is called the brace end. Okay, that'll be the brace end. And the bottom part that meets the base, we're going to call the base end of the spindle. Now, it's going to be assumed that the brace end gets mated as well and is greased. The base end is going to be assumed that it's mated with the base board, or just the base, and a notch goes near that end. Okay? And you try not to confuse the two, because if the grease end goes in the base, you'd have to either recarve or resand or re-drill the whole hole all over again in the base where that spindle meets. All right, so we clarified that, and we're going to keep going. Next one. All right, so before I do my next technique of the mouth toggle drill, I want to show you that, remember before I showed you the polypore shell fungus is used for coal extender, but it has another use. It can be used as a base. So, and here's what I've done. I've taken a section of this polypore fungus and I've made it into a base. As you can see, it's mated with a notch. But what's special about this one is that one day I was looking online for some ideas as well as doing some research, and I came across seeing a mouth toggle drill set on display at a museum or somewhere, and its base was cut in like this, and through assessment and diagnosis, right, you could probably figure out what that does. It is a coal catcher, just by the way it's cut, it being one piece. So instead of ever, and this is ingenious for the northern peoples where the ground is always cold and wet, now you don't even have to worry about how you're going to transfer that coal to your tinder bundle. It can't get lost unless a big huge wind comes in and blows it away. You just pick this up and dump the whole thing in your tinder bundle. So you can't lose it. It won't go anywhere. Okay? It's not going to separate from the base. But as you know, polypore shell fungus, as well as the tinder fungus, which I'm going to show you next, they're coal extenders. So once the coal is attached to this material, the whole thing starts to coal up. So what I better do is, once this gets a coal, make sure that this whole thing doesn't catch and just keep on burning, especially when I put it away. I've had that happen once where I thought I put my shell fungus away after putting a coal on top of it, and I found it later it had eaten all the way. I was lucky it didn't catch fire. So we're going to get a close-up of this and give it a go. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do for really good effect is we're going to get a close-up of the fungus base with the shelf so you can see the whole thing take place. Now we're going to do the copper spindle. This one is the 7-inch before I did the longer one. The brace end is a bamboo chopstick, as you can see. But the base end is Ailanthus, or Tree of Heaven. And this is a branch of that. As you can see, everything is mated. We're going to do our oak T pressure mount brace, and we're going to do the parachute cord. So I'm going to tie that on there. And I'm going to get into a kneeling position, although you can't see, but I just want you to see the effect of the shell fungus as a base. Okay. I'm in a kneeling position, and we got a good close-up of that. I'm going to warm it up, and here we go. there's our coal. Polypore shelf fungus with Tree of Heaven Ailanthus Reload. And here's what it's all about. I would just take this paper towel is going to represent a tinder funnel, and it would get directly transferred into our tinder bundle, and it would not get lost. Okay, shelved base with tinder fungus, polypore shelf fungus material. Okay.